This week, the stories are about papers for undocumented residents in Spain, debt-free access at Yale, paid internships for all at Dartmouth, and more. Hi, I'm Bernadette Smith, keynote speaker and writer. Welcome to 5 Things, where I bring good vibes to DEI. There's plenty of bad news out there. This show is about the good stuff, real progress, real stories, and ideas to help you make your work and life more inclusive. Your proof of positive change. Hi, this is Bernadette Smith, CEO of Equality Institute. Welcome to 5 Things, Good Vibes in DEI. This is your proof of positive change. So last week I was in New York City, and while I was on the subway, these 2 men came in pulling a cooler which had all of these different food bags in it. And they got our attention and were offering to give out food to anyone who was hungry, but they were also collecting donations. And smiles, one of them said. So as he was speaking, I couldn't help but tear up a little bit. And it made me ask myself the question, what are the things that move us, the things that make us tear up? Tell us about our values. So if you've been following my work, you know that one of my values is optimism. It's the core of this work at 5 Things. And when I tear up, it's usually because I'm witnessing some sort of act of kindness or generosity. When I see others kind of bravely doing the right thing, even in a patriotic way, like showing up for our country. I am very moved by the national anthem, and I'm very moved by military performances or seeing a lot of military folks at airports. That moves me as well. I tear up when I see things that show me that humans are really kind. When humans give me hope. I tear up when I see evidence of hope, when I see evidence of humans doing the right thing or making sacrifices for me, for the betterment of all of us. And I think when we pay attention to what moves us, it's actually like leadership data. Pay attention to what moves you. Because if you don't, you're probably just moving and leading out of habit, not necessarily out of your values. So I would love for you to share what moves you. Share in the chat. All right, let's get into this week's 5 Things. The first story this week comes from Spain, where the government approved a fast-track plan to legalize the status of 500,000 undocumented migrants. So to be eligible, they have to have lived in Spain for at least 5 months by the end of 2025. They can't have a criminal record. And in some cases, they may have had to already have applied for asylum before the end of last year. So successful applicants, they receive a 1-year residence in Spain and a work permit. And this is so important because legal status, it reduces the risk of exploitation. It expands access to things like healthcare and stable work, and especially for folks who are already doing this kind of essential labor. The second story this week comes from Yale, which will eliminate tuition and other expected costs for new undergrads from families earning under $100,000 annually. So it's starting with students entering this fall. So they are also waiving tuition, but not all fees for families earning under $200,000. So Yale is the latest major university to do this after affordable action was overturned in 2023. We've seen that Princeton has done it, Harvard, some others have done it. And affordability is a really big, making things more affordable is a strategy to increase all kinds of diversity. So this is definitely significant for Yale and hopefully will help a lot of folks. All right, the third story comes from the Olympics, where billionaire Ross Stevens has pledged $100 million to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to provide $200,000 to every U.S. Olympic and Paralympic athlete who qualifies for these upcoming games, whether or not they medal. So the program is actually structured as a long-term security. So that athlete is going to receive $100,000 at age 45 or 20 years after their first qualifying game, whichever comes later. They're also going to receive $100,000 as a guaranteed benefit for their family after death. So definitely thinking ahead there. What I love about this is that it challenges a system where lots of elite athletes have to take a big financial risk without a safety net. They don't know what's going to happen in the games. They could get injured. There's all kinds of safety net issues. And especially for athletes who have fewer sponsorship options, having to balance training and paying for essentially your training when you're an Olympic athlete on a kind of a random sport, not necessarily the big headlining sports, can be tough. But this really helps these folks out. All right, here we go. The next story comes from Dartmouth University, which raised $30 million in endowed gifts to expand internship access. So the idea here is to remove financial barriers for undergraduate interns. So the school can now support about 250 students each year pursuing internships in fields that often don't pay, like arts, media, public service, global health, conservation. And these unpaid internships, which are often accepted by folks who are wealthier or by folks who then have to have another job or two to survive, to live on, unpaid internships are a wealth filter and often exclude folks who don't have any kind of financial cushion. So access is definitely not equal, but this will go a long way thanks to Dartmouth and their donors. All right, and the last story this week comes from Minnesota, where the Chamber of Commerce released an open letter signed by more than 60 businesses and CEOs calling for immediate de-escalation after the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. So the signatories listed included major employers like Target, United Health, Best Buy, plus the Minnesota Timberwolves and Vikings. And, I think this is particularly notable because many companies have taken a big step back from issuing public statements of any kind against injustice. So I think it's really significant that 60 plus have done this, and hopefully indicates that we're going to start seeing some more folks stand up and fight ICE. So many major companies haven't done this in years right now. They're no longer speaking out. And so it's really great to see these folks saying, you know what, we really need to have some peace here in Minneapolis. So this is very significant and hopefully a sign of a new shift to come. Let's get into this week's Good Vibe to Go. This week's Good Vibe to Go is to check out Marcello Hernández's stand-up special, American Boy, on Netflix. So Marcello is one of the stars of Saturday Night Live. And I do think this special takes a little while to warm up, but once you get into it, it's really charming and a lot of fun. So good vibes indeed. Folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to 5 Things, Good Vibes, and DEI. If today's stories gave you hope or sparked an idea, share this episode with a colleague or a friend. And if you want to spread more good vibes, leave a quick rating or review. It helps others find their proof of positive change.